Welcome to today's 2-minute prophecy. Want to spend some time today talking about giants to you and basically address some things that we've talked about in the past as far as aliens. And I'm not necessarily a believer in aliens, and whether or not they exist has no bearing on whether or not God is who He is, or whether the Bible's true, and whether or not Jesus is the Son of God. So whether you believe in the Bible, aliens, I'm not really debating that. What I want to talk about is it seems that we are all hung up on how the pyramids got built and how Easter Island is the way it is, and how they moved all these huge cut rocks, how they were cut and then moved and put in places down in Guatemala and the Aztec area, in the Mayan area. Well, I think the easiest explanation is giants, and we have explanation for that in the Bible. I don't understand why we have to search elsewhere for those that information. So I want to read some of the things that the Bible says about giants. So in Genesis 6, verses 1 through 4, when the human population began to grow rapidly on the earth, the sons of God saw the beautiful women of the human race and took any they wanted as their wives. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not put up with humans for such a long time, for they are only mortal flesh. In the future they will have no more than 120 years. In those days and even afterward, giants lived on the earth. For whenever the sons of God had intercourse with human women, they gave birth to children who became the heroes mentioned in legends of old." Okay, so now we go to Numbers and look at verse 22 of chapter 13. Going northward, they passed first through the Negev and arrived at Hebron, where Ahiman, Shishai, and Talmai, all descendants of Anak, lived. The ancient town of Hebron was founded 7 years before the Egyptian city of Zon. So it gives you a little time period of when the giants lived. But in verse 28, but the people living there are powerful, and their cities and towns are fortified and very large. We also saw the descendants of Anak who are living there. Verse 33 of chapter 13. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. We felt like grasshoppers next to them, and that's what we looked like to them. All right, so we go on. We look at some other verses in the Bible. In Deuteronomy 1, verse 28, how can we go on? Our scouts have demoralized us with their report. They say the people of the land are taller and more powerful than we are, and that the walls of their towns rise high into the sky. They have even seen giants there, the descendants of Anak. Okay. Chapter 2 of Deuteronomy, verse 10, a numerous and powerful race of giants called the Emites had once lived in the area of Ar. Okay. They're also called Rephaites and Moabites. Moabites called the Emites. All right, and going on, we're going to read a couple more. In Deuteronomy chapter 3, we read about King Og. In verse 11, incidentally, King Og of Bashan was the last of the giant Rephaites. His iron bed was more than 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. It can still be seen in the Ammonite city of Rabbah. And then we go to Joshua, and we learn about Goliath in chapter 17. I'm sorry, not Joshua. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 4. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was a giant of a man, measuring over 9 feet tall. In King Og's bed, they found it was 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. So there were definitely people alive, giants back then, that definitely could make giant cities and huge walls and move huge stone monuments around. I don't see why we need to look elsewhere for those types of information to help us explain things. And I definitely don't understand why we can't look at the Bible to understand what's happening today. And Satan's running rampant, wild, and I'm sure he's foaming at the mouth trying to explain to everybody why God isn't God and that the aliens are out there and they're coming to get us. So that's your 2-minute prophecy, and I'll see you tomorrow.